Hey, and we're live. Hey, gang. Welcome to the Ghosts of Bacon, episode 85. I'm your host, Jake Roberts. And what a cool show I have in store for you guys tonight. I'm really excited. A lot of you probably saw my post today, seeing a lot of the usual suspects out there. Got to give a few shout outs. First of all, hey, Z, good to see you. And Z, thanks for all of the good work you're doing in the Ghosts of Bacon group on Facebook. I really appreciate everything you do, all of the posts you put up, and you do a lot of the admin stuff for me. I really appreciate all the help. My friend Linda, good to see you. Jan, hey, and there's my buddy Adam Thomas giving a shout out to John Edwards, who's also in the house. Yes, congratulations on the Oak Island appearances. Well done. They were really well done. I agree, Adam. And I want to give you a shout out and your dad, Francis or Frank. It's easier to remember him as Francis, I guess. For all of the work that you guys are doing. I can't wait to have you guys on the podcast and share all of your discoveries. But tonight, it's really about the work of three people that all of you know from this podcast and also the show, The Curse of Oak Island. And of course, I'm talking about my good friend John Edwards, my friend Gretchen Cornwall, which I'm pulling in here in a minute, and William Russell. Their book is coming out finally. And welcome to the show, Gretchen Cornwall, my friend. So glad to have you here. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things tonight. And you know, if you're watching here live or you watch this later on YouTube, if you haven't bought Gretchen's book, The Secret Dossier of a Knight Templar of the Sangreal, you need a copy of this book. Gretchen, it's such a, like I told you earlier today, first of all, it's such a great read. Just the way you string together sentences is as an English teacher and a teacher of writing, I want to say I'm a little jealous. Your narrative voice, as I'm reading this book, it's like I'm hearing you talk, when we talk together here, talking about our research and so on. I mean, it's just really well done. And I don't have enough good things to say about it. So if you're watching this and you haven't already gotten a copy of it, make sure you go grab one, because it's I think it's just wonderful work you've done here.
Thank you.
And well deserved. And now I guess tonight we're going to be announcing your latest project you've been working on as a collaborative effort with a couple of my friends. And I couldn't be more excited about this. Like I told you guys earlier today, I'm so excited about this book coming out. I know you guys are in the home stretch of finalizing everything, the text, and then comes the editing and formatting that we all dread, but it has to be done. And so I really can't wait for this book to come out. And we're going to be debuting the book cover on the show, which I'm super excited about. John promised me that when the time came to, basically display it to the world, that he would do it here on my podcast. I'm humbled and extremely grateful that you guys want to do that here on my show. So you want to talk a little bit about your collaboration and how all of this came about? And I know that, and just, John and both William and John are here in the chat. William decided to not join the podcast, which I totally understand, because he's afraid of revealing too much, and I get it. John, I'm also sending you the link if you want to pop on, if your cough isn't too bad, but I just got off the phone with you and you sound terrible. So want to make sure you stay healthy. But I'll send it to you if you guys want to pop on just the same. But in the meantime, Gretchen, how did all of this come about?
Well, goodness, they invited me to a meeting, and we spoke for a while, and various subjects came up. And the two of them obviously have a great connection, because I didn't really take on board what they were hinting at. And before I knew it, they'd both decided, without going away and having a conversation about it, that I would be their third writing partner. and I knew that
Right.
they'd been on the trail for a year before
Yeah.
I joined them. So they've been at this longer than I have, but I've brought my back catalog with me, so to speak, and have been doing the bulk of the writing with their direct input.
Right.
And it's just been astonishing. And this book is, at some points, it just dictates where it needs to go, and says, okay, this is what has to happen now. And we've just recently, within the last 2 weeks, had a major discovery that we had to make room for. And it was so exciting. It really was. And I'm thrilled to be here this evening. I know if John wasn't coughing and feeling unwell, that he'd be thrilled to be here too. And
Absolutely.
likewise, and I promise not to spill anything that I shouldn't.
Don't spill too much tea.
So it's been incredible, and we really are getting down to the last bit of writing effort, and then we'll be editing, and then of course formatting, and exactly what all of that means. So we are
Very
looking at the final months and final few weeks of writing before editing and then production. But it's
so
very,
exciting.
it's just very exciting, and it suits what I do so well, as far as marrying historical events, individuals, artwork, locations. So it is, everything with a human being is visual, and engages the
Mhm.
senses. So that's what this book is, very powerful in that manner. So I'm just thrilled to be here with you today, and
Uh,
this is a milestone for
it
us.
it really is, and it's a
Yeah.
milestone for me, because like I was expressing earlier today, first of all, when John finally revealed to me the bombshell that you were also in cahoots with those two, I thought, what the perfect partner for this, with your writing accomplishments and everything else that you've done. It's the perfect triumvirate as far as I'm concerned in dealing with this particular material, because what you three have done, and I only know the basics, because you know how John and William love to mess with me, and they they say, no, we're not saying anymore until we're on the show, the book's out, and then we drop some bombs and watch your face. They want to see my jaw drop, is what it is. Uh, and so they love messing with me, and it heightens my expectations, and I can't wait. But what you guys are doing, it's corroboration, repeatability, and
Oh,
John
God,
and
yeah.
I preach this all the time. You guys have been able to uncover from completely different sources the same information that I've uncovered and discovered and have put out there, and now independently, you know, reproducing and corroborating everything that I've said is true. And I couldn't be more happy. I couldn't be more excited. And just like I said, as soon as that book's out, I'm gonna have a copy in my fists, and I can't wait to devour it. Um, so where do you want to go next? Because you have
No,
um, you have information that
I'm thrilled to be here, and I just respect my co-authors so much. William Russell is just so quick when it comes to the math, the codes. He
he's
is
a
a
wizard.
genius.
Yep.
John Edwards is a genius. A colleague of a teacher like yourself as
Yes.
well. And what one of us doesn't know, the other does. And I'm just so proud to be part of this trio, and uh, can't wait. So I'm very excited to be here today. If in case you can't tell.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
well, it depends on where you would like to go. I hurriedly, threw so many photos at you this within the last 20 minutes. I desperately tried to clean up my backdrop. I'm looking after my mother's condo and her two
Right.
cats. So there might be a cat or two involved at some point here. So be prepared.
We always welcome cats on the show.
All right. Well,
Just,
this is real.
they're always
This
welcome
is
here.
real life. It's real life. So here we are. And now with that gesture you just made, isn't tomorrow St. Patrick's Day? Is
It
that
is
right?
indeed. It is indeed
So,
St. Patty's Day. So,
I'm going gently with it because I have not tried this yet
oh my
myself, but
gosh.
it needed to be green, right? So
Right.
it's green. So
It's
anyway,
great.
I'll hold off on that for a little bit, but this is also a bit of a celebration. So
Absolutely. I have to have, a happy St. Patty's Day for sure.
yes, yes.
So, hopefully all of our viewers out there are enjoying their own libations for St. Patty's Day, celebrating this amazing book that's coming out. Your book, which I mean is just like I said, I don't have enough good things to say about it. The way you
Thank you.
spell out the trail, of the Templars and their journey. It's really spellbinding. I just love it.
I try to, you have to take on board when you're looking at historical events and people. They're really not that much different from who we are today.
Right.
They really aren't.
Right.
And their culture, however, was incredibly strict. The discipline was strict. And really, if you didn't live that way, you died, because you had to bring in the harvest. You
Yeah.
had to do certain things at different times of the year. And if you were a warrior or were a general manager of a Templar farm, producing, mercantile goods, wine, horseshoes, wheat, grapes, whatever, you had to be very strict. It's, I truly am in awe of Bernard de Clairvaux, and spent quite a lot of time on him in my first book.
Yeah.
And the Cistercians, because he saved the Cistercians from going out of business from 2 failing houses, taking 30 of his own male relatives into the Cistercian house.
Right.
And some of them had been married. He was 16. So his older male relatives followed a 16-year-old into this endeavor.
Right.
And between Bernard de Clairvaux and Abbot Stephen Harding, they developed the rule of the Cistercian, which became the rule of the Templars. And basically, a Templar is a Cistercian with a sword.
Right.
So,
Right.
So
yeah, fascinating stuff. And the idea that they would follow he was obviously a very impressive individual from what you've written. Just the fact that, the elder members of his family would follow this teenager. I mean,
yeah.
And I really love that you put, really hit the nail on the head in terms of when we think of, these people as moderns, looking back, we look at these historical figures, oftentimes, we forget that they were just people like us who had incentives and specific motivations for doing what they did, but their lives were very, very different. And what I find sometimes frustrating, but I totally understand it, is that as moderns, when we look back, we forget that their lives were very different. For example, the individuals that I study and that William studies, the Rosy Cross, these were not people who had a 9-to-5 job and would go and punch a time clock. People always ask me, how did they find time to do all of these things? I said, well, this is how they spent their time. They're creating these ciphers, for example, and these messages. This is what they did as a leisure time activity. For them, it was fun. It was a form of entertainment, right? The idea of painting these paintings and creating these maps and writing these works of literature. This is what they did as a pastime.
It's who they were, and they crafted themselves as members of the intelligentsia, the 7 liberal arts. Much of that as you could master meant that you could be a civic leader, and you could be trusted.
Absolutely.
And so that was truly, how our education system came down to us, and no one can master it all, but for those that did, or came close to it, or orchestrated others to fill spots that they were not competent in. I don't know if Bernard de Clairvaux was a fine singer, but he sure was an orator. And he knew how to lead. He was a businessman, and that model of business rolled out hundreds of Cistercian abbeys across Europe, and of course the same model rolled out hundreds of Templar properties as well. So the exact same model.
Wow.
So yes, and it's a way of life. And truly, when in your work and my work, and my co-authors will say, inspiration strikes at all hours of the day and night.
Correct.
And you have to write it down at that juncture. You have to honor it at that moment, or you lose it. You lose the phrasing, the tone of the tone, the depth, the
spirit of it.
The spirit of it.
Yeah.
So you either have to write it down really quickly, record it, get on your keyboard. And they were the same way. And of course they pushed each other. So, Bacon with his cadre, his group of followers, they pushed each other to excel, because excelling meant not just survival, but fulfillment. Yeah,
I agree. So a lot of what you sent me. Okay, so do you want to debut the book cover at this juncture?
That's a good question. What
Where
would
do you want to
be
go
the
first?
most exciting thing to do here? Is
'Cause
anybody in the chat preference?
Yeah, let's see what their preferences are.
Do they want to know now? Do they want to hold their breath
Hold your
until
breath.
the very end?
I also have your Talmont Castle video queued up as well.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting. I was so taken with now it's probably not great by this was a few years ago, so the camera work isn't that terrific, but I was stunned by the amount of crows that lived in the castle walls.
Oh, wow.
And just flocks of them. It was almost like The Birds, the movie The Birds.
Yeah.
And very ominous, and it was fantastic. And of course, it's a stunning backdrop. Sure, if you'd like to cue
Well,
that
let's see.
it's about a minute long, and at the end, you can see the castle, and you can make out the tops of the jousting field lighting. So they hold concerts there. They have medieval reenactments, jousting, swordsmanship, etc. Many castles do across Europe and the UK, and enactment fairs here in the US too.
Right. So looking at the comments here quickly, Jenny's accusing me of really teasing everyone. And come on, Jenny, you know me better than that. And of course, John chimed in that, yes, it has been a really great collaboration, which, I've known this, kind of keeping it under my hat here for well over a year now, of what those two started. And then when you joined and John finally revealed to me that, you were also in cahoots, I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be fantastic.
Thank you.
AO says, hi, John, salute to you for a great presentation you did in the War Room Fellowship. Absolutely. Wasn't that great, AO? John, you and Scott, I think really knocked that presentation out of the park. And I know that we only saw, a fraction of what you guys did. Especially when you guys were sitting around a campfire with Jack and sending me pictures later that evening. I hated you all for it. Just busting on me.
They did a great job.
Oh, they did a great job. Let's see. Jan Scorzone, one of our followers. How did the dynamics with writing this book work? Did you get together in person, or did you spend time in FaceTimes and phone calls? Great question, Jan, because anytime we collaborate, it's piecemeal. What do you have to say?
Well, emails, virtually. We all live a very long way away from each other.
Right.
So it's phone calls, and it's an 8-hour time difference with Edwards, in between a bit.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, lots of talking, trading messages and information, and trying to keep, it's a different dynamic writing with somebody else. It's a first for me, but it's been very rewarding. And we're challenging each other to be the put out the strongest material we can, as well. But yeah, so a cloud file sharing place, and a lot of this,
Yeah.
what you and I are doing right now, a lot of that.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
um,
And the thing is, to speak to what you just said, when you have a collaboration of such high level individuals as you three, I mean, it just forces you to, you know, make sure that, you're working at a caliber that's on par with one another. And so,
mhm.
knowing having done collaborations with both William and John, I know the level of the work that they do, and so it's just I brings me to this next comment by our friend AO. He says, when Jake, Gretchen, and company are excited about whatever it is you're working on, it's going to be a mind blowing treat of discovery. Um,
Oh,
it
thank you.
absolutely AO,
Thank
because
you.
I mean, William and John have been teasing me for, well, over a year and a half now, 2 years as they worked on this. And then they finally revealed that you were on board with it. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be fantastic. I just can't wait. Um, And John is, teasing everyone here with this comment. AO, the discoveries are literally jaw dropping. And then William chimes in, well, John, we had a secret weapon. And obviously John agrees. Yes,
I'm
you guys
surprised
do.
we kept it a secret as long as we had,
I
and
know.
quiet as long as we. And I kept thinking there were times when frankly, I was just so adrenalized and worried,
Yep.
and we've done our various, between the three of us, or certainly me, be oh my god, we have to get it done because somebody's going to figure this out. What if they go there first? And just, all this work, and we've had moments of real cathartic dread, and I certainly have, and just fear that it would get
Yeah.
out, or one of us would drop a ball somewhere, and we're not across the finish line yet. um, some of the material, I have to say, challenged me. I was viscerally affected for 3 days when William put something in front of us, and it just shocked me,
I know.
and it was quite something. So it took me 3 days to physically, recalibrate, my physicality. I don't know how else to say it.
I
Um,
completely get it, Gretchen. I
and
totally understand that feeling.
yeah,
Um,
and I'm used to controversy. If anybody who's read any of my books, I'm used to controversy, and this just
Absolutely.
was
Oh,
beyond
I
what
know.
I was expecting.
And it's like the latest round of decryptions I just did, as you know, and I have no problem announcing it on my own podcast. I just did a huge data dump with our Oak Island friends, and it's 5 years worth of information. And when I decrypted these messages, um, I had that same sort of, like as you said, visceral sort of reaction. I'm like, this
Yeah,
cannot possibly be true.
yeah,
Um, and it here I'm decrypting messages that basically confirm, other people's theories that I've never really, thought were, possible. And yet now suddenly here's Francis Bacon laying out this information, and basically confirming things that I never thought could be true. And so it took me, like you said, I think it took me a week and a half to really kind of set aside my own cognitive biases of against what I was reading. So, if anybody needed any kind of confirmation that, I'm not looking for information just to confirm my own theories, but I'm actually seeing and reading messages that confront, my own disconfirmation bias in a way, that I'm not looking for information. I'm finding it that and all of a sudden it's confirming things that I didn't think were possible. Um, you
Yeah.
know, it's unsettling. And so what you're expressing, I totally understand. I've felt that exact same way with my own research, where I have to just finally wrap my head around it and say, okay, well, um, I don't necessarily never really believed this, and yet here it is. And so, and basically, I've made all of that information open source to my closest friends and fellow researchers, such as yourself and John and William, um, and a few others, just so that you know that this is the information that's out there. And and as I said, I obviously sent it along to the team, um, and so it's a lot. In the word of one of their point researchers, they said, "Wow, Jake, this is a lot of information. I have questions, and I'm making a list." I said, "Okay, great. Just take your time."
Yeah.
And so um, the thing is that when you're confronted with something that uh, is so challenging, um, and in particular because it, came from William and ciphers in particular. I preached this on the show that William and Elizabeth Friedman, she was the godmother of cryptology in the United States, and he was the father of the modern National Security Agency in the
Mm.
U.S. When they call cipher research the bedrock of evidence, when it's properly done,
Wow.
when these experts refer to it as such, and we know that I know that William is using the best methodologies uh, available to us, uh, the same as I do. I know that what he is finding is going to be valid, and so when we're faced with these you know rather difficult truths, I when you said you had that visceral reaction, I totally understand that feeling and that emotion of what you went through, because it's very trying. It's very difficult.
Yeah, and it's certainly we have a duty to lay out what they thought, and I admit that I agree with them. So I'll
Right,
leave it at
exactly.
that.
Right, right,
I cannot fault their statements, their coded statements.
right, right, and that's kind of where I was at with what Bacon had encrypted in my latest round, and again, it's all geared towards my own research that I'm doing with uh, William and John and Adam and his dad Frank, but it's also geared towards my collaboration with Bill Smith. And um, when I'm focused on that, and yet Oak Island keeps coming up, right? I have to. I just compartmentalized it and I put it all together in one package. And the only way to really understand it is in one big data dump, which is what I did. So, I feel kind of bad for Doug, but at the end of the day, it's the only way to really wrap your head around it. So,
Yeah,
again, and like you said, when you're faced with that information, um, what do? You
yeah.
have to either, understand it and reconcile it with what you already think and then move on. And if you can't disagree, then there it is.
It takes courage to be the first to put something out that's been discovered. And after that, people follow in behind. And, I've seen this over the years where I know who the originator of a theory is, and this could be in a wide range of mysteries
Sure.
or historical mysteries, and people will forget the originator, and new people are coming up, saying that they've done this, and the origination has been forgotten. But yeah, it's really interesting to watch something that came to light 20, 30 years ago is now being repeated, without without pause. So eventually, if we're lucky, we will also likewise have that occur to us too. But it's been a real privilege working with these two gentlemen, and I'm proud to be a member of the team, and contributing my voice, my knowledge. Certainly my ability to master all of the 7 liberal arts is woefully lacking. So, when it comes to,
As it is with most.
I mean, William just leaves me in the dust all the time. So I just, okay, I'll just, I'm convinced.
It's so
Yeah,
God, of course, that
I'm
is
turning
like a
scarlet
rapid.
now.
I think you're blushing.
It's been fun.
Oh yeah.
We have our code names.
Oh yeah.
We have our code names, but I've enjoyed and appreciated quoting you as well, Jake. And I know that you've had war rooms, and I certainly would have liked to have seen those air. I myself have had war rooms that have not aired,
Oh yeah.
and one of those is on Talmont, Chateau Talmont. So that has always mystified me with, and I'm not saying this as a complaint. It's just a bit of a bewilderment with Zena's map being so prominent.
Absolutely.
What was the choice in not to air either one of those war rooms? So I don't know. And you never know what production thinks is going to be a good sell or
That's just
a
it.
good
It's
story. It's
yeah.
mystifying. I
Well,
would sure like to see
the
less repetition and treat people a little bit more intelligently, if I may cross a line here.
go
But
ahead.
because I want to see more content, and I actually wrote Corianne Mall and said, hey, I know that you've had an amazing summer, not this year. This was
2 summers ago.
might have been 11. I know you've had this incredible summer. Is there any way you can talk production into having a side special of all of these amazing locations that you've been to? And can you share those with us in some way? Because I want to
Right.
know more,
Right.
not less, more.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, is that um people ask me this sort of stuff all the time, what my opinion, and this is just my opinion, gang. I'm spitballing here, but I'll just tell you for what it's worth. The key word in the production company is Prometheus Entertainment. It's a television show. It's entertainment.
Yeah.
And they're very, very good at piecing together a narrative. Yeah. That is going to keep people entertained for an hour. They're just very good at it. When it first started, we do know that they were really the original executive producer was very interested in the history and really wanted to show that story and show it as it's really happening. And when he passed away, things kind of changed. They then had a real monster on their hands. It was it's still the leading unscripted TV show on cable television.
Yeah,
So,
amazing.
which is amazing. It's an amazing accomplishment, and so they have a formula that's working for them.
Yeah.
But for all of us who really want to, well, challenge, viewers and say, no, this is something you really need to think about and consider and understand, because there are aspects to it that are just. I think that they believe that certain things are a little too challenging for the audience, when in fact I think they're
I love
underestimating
the history. This program, might be classed as infotainment, but
Sure.
it is challenging preconceived notions of pre-Columbian travel quite successfully.
Absolutely.
And I have signed up on board with that one, and just I was so thrilled to find out that Nolan's cross had been dated to 1200 by Dr. Ian Spooner.
Yeah.
I hung my hat on that as being Templar era, with the headstone being that of John the Baptist.
Yeah.
And of course, Nolan's Cross has, as we've seen, been repurposed, as John Edwards has discovered as well, by later generation.
And William Russell's latest discovery as well.
Yeah, I was trying not to say anything, but yes, I can't.
I'll throw him under the bus. I'll throw it out.
I've got my fingers crossed on that one, because it would mean that all three of the authors on this book will have been engaged with Oak Island, and everything
Absolutely.
always goes back to Oak Island.
And it's shocking. It was the base of operations of the Rosy Cross. I've said it before on the show. Okay,
yes.
that's my latest discovery. They used it after they discovered what they discovered there. And again, I have to leave it at that. They used it as their base of operations. And my latest round of decryptions basically pieced together that multi-generational aspect of it, which that's the part that really blew my mind. When a couple summers ago, I read Dr. Gaspani's report on Nolan's Cross, and that's when I knew I was wrong. When I'm wrong, I admit it, and I had it wrong in terms of what I thought Nolan's Cross was. And after I read his report, I just it was funny. The conversation I had with our friend that John likes to call the Big Cheese was I said, "Look, I'm convinced." He says, "Well, don't say you're convinced yet." I said, "No. I said, "This is very convincing. This is compelling information. I got it wrong." And as a result, what he did was I pulled my Oak Island book. It was my best-selling book, but I had wrong information in it, so I pulled it. And I'm reworking.
That takes courage, Jake. It really does.
I'm not trying to lionize myself here in any way. I'm just saying, it's like I got it wrong, and I don't want that wrong information out there with my name on it.
I hear you. Yeah, I hear you. I've got one piece of info out there that I discovered afterwards was wrong. However, in later generations, that became corrected. I had the right information, but the wrong origin, and it's easy to do. Unfortunately,
it is.
We're not perfect. But yes, I did go to Chateau Talmont because of Zena Halpern's lower right-hand corner, and I focused on that. I also visited Chateau de la Rochefoucauld because I wanted to see for myself, because boots on the ground are really important. He's with us. Hi,
Jeff.
boots on the, because for me, an author that might have focused on a location will definitely miss stuff that matters to me. So, and I know what I'm looking for, what I'm looking at. Right. And so, Talmont was amazing. And I was glad I took the time to go.
I'll cue up that video right now. That's a perfect segue into it.
And that's out of this, which is focused on Oak Island mysteries. Royston Cave, Talmont, Rochefoucauld Chateau. So that's what this one is about. And
since you brought up Royston Cave, I do want to just tell you that I don't think Bill is in the house watching live this evening, but he's super excited. That when I mentioned that you might want to give us a tour of Royston Cave this summer.
I would love to. I would love to make that happen.
He's pretty excited. And so here, let me go ahead and pull this up. I'm just going to.
Yeah, and it's about. I was so in such awe of this flock of birds, and when you have to walk up a steep hill to get into the castle grounds, and it was full of crows.
Wow.
And they were loud, and it's a big place. It's might not appear so here.
Right.
But this go ahead. But yeah, so I was captured by the crows, and then it swings over to the remains of the castle, which has an interior tower that you can climb all the way up into.
Oh, wow.
And it's now landlocked 4 miles off the coast, but it had been surrounded on 3 sides by water and accessible directly from the castle
Right.
by a harbor arm, of
Wow.
course. And of course, this is directly tied to Oak Island.
Sure.
So,
Okay, let me go ahead and press play.
okay.
Great intro.
You can hear French school children in the background as well, and you'll get a quick image of the castle walls here soon. But it's an interesting place. There's no industry in the area. Its time as an important location is past. And of course, Richard Lionheart owned this.
Right.
His mother bequeathed it to him, Eleanor of Aquitaine. And then, of course, Louis Tours, Lord Tours of 1307, who fought in the Battle of Poitiers. Louis was on the losing side of that battle, the French side, the English one. And when he died, his daughter inherited the property, but the title went back to the crown, and it was reissued a few hundred years later to a family in the north, who are now the lords of Talmont.
Oh, wow.
Or were. So, but there's a genetic break. It's not the same family line.
Sure.
So, but that's one of my. So, apologies for
No worries. No, this is great info. And I'm just looking. I was able to kind of scroll through our comments, and it looks like most of the people want us to save the book for
cover for last. Save the best for last.
So I need to go and.
I'm trying to come up with something interesting here. Let's see, Talmont. Basically, Louis was also a lion, and I found his crest in an old book on French genealogy, and he has on his helm a pair of stag horns, and in the center is a lion. Rampant, I believe is the term, standing up. So we have 2 lions of Talmont, Richard the Lionheart, and then Louis Tours. So, and both of them may have been key. He was alive during 1347, and that is the date, if it is a date, in Royston Cave, the brick in Royston Cave. And yet in Royston Cave, you see Richard Lionheart, an image of him, and his wife as well.
Yeah.
So they're both depicted in the cave, and the family crest for the Rochefoucauld family is also in Royston Cave. So there's a direct connection between the Aquitaine lords and princes and kings with that of England, of course, because they ruled England and France.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Great stuff. Well, on the Telmont front, we also have Zena's map.
I'm trying to find pictures.
I'm pulling it up right here. I had it. We all look at this map.
I was a bit disorganized today. I'm trying to sound like I've got it together, but
are you seeing this? Okay.
There we go.
And of course, you see the little lion of Talmont down in the lower right-hand corner with a picture of a fish.
Yes, and there are discussions. The young lion of Talmont, the cub,
Cub, yeah.
you
And the
know, but certainly both men were young at one point and owned that property.
right,
And is it just one or is it both of them? So that's
right.
an interesting thing to take on board, considering you could directly uh, approach the chateau due to the harbor arm, and it was quite an important fortress at one point.
Right.
And it was so easy at that juncture to hide your identity, go somewhere. You could have embarked from Talmont directly to Oak Island
Hmm.
and gone on a mission. And of course, this would have been over centuries.
Right.
There have been finds going back quite a ways. One stone feature dated to 1120, and of course, the Vikings have been approaching, I believe, Iceland, Greenland, North America, since 800, I think.
Oh yeah.
And then there's Lax and Meadows that dates to 1020, which is a ship repair station, implying that you needed a ship repair station for multiple ships. So,
Right.
And it was just, eventually they would have gone all the way down the coast. And the Vikings actually, it's a 4-hour car ride from the coast to Chateau de la Rochefoucauld on the freeway system. 4 hours. The Vikings went down the coast and infiltrated the river systems all the way up to Angoulême, which is the medieval city right below, west of Chateau de la Rochefoucauld, where Foucauld built his first original fortress because of those Viking incursions.
Right.
So,
And the Rochefoucauld name, of course, is on Zena's map as well. I mean, we
absolutely up at the top right,
top right.
And that's important too, because I wanted to approach that map based on its elements. There are a lot of people who say, "Oh, it's not real," but there's so much going on with this thing. You even have references to the Occitan or Occitan language, which
Right.
was that language was spoken all the way up as far north as Chateau de la Rochefoucauld, which is a significant way south, considering that language was the Cathar language of southern France.
Right.
And there are 800,000 speakers of that language today still. Richard Lionheart probably spoke it and understood it, along with French being the the language of the court.
Court.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, those are great observations, Gretchen, for sure. And
what do you want to do now?
well, I want to take a look at some of the comments. And here's William calling out Mercer. Where is he? Jason is on vacation. He's heading out. He headed out this morning for spring break with his family. So
he didn't wait for us.
He wasn't able to join us, unfortunately. And John, Peter Amundsen, was a big inspiration to me when I first started looking at steganography and cryptology. And I'd always been interested in it, but when I bought his book when he was on Oak Island, the Curse of Oak Island, and did his war room, I was really inspired by that. So, and there are many giants upon whose shoulders I'm standing, for sure.
Yes, we all are, and he blazed a trail, and it was very brave of him to put forward his theory.
Absolutely.
And that had to have been tough. It's always tough being the first one to break through on information.
When I look at what Peter did, and I said as much when we chatted online, that he was the first one to do and use legitimate cryptanalysis techniques with the works of Shakespeare. There's a long history of it, and it's a very jaded history. And because of the shoddy cryptanalysis work that has been done in the past, it has this dark cloud hanging over it, and has ever since. But when I saw him do that, and he broke through and demonstrated that it could be done, that's why I started doing what I did. And it was Peter Amundsen, Chris Dona, and Chris Morford that really kind of pulled me into the Oak Island mystery for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Z, I didn't know that. That's cool. There was also a Sphinx-looking rock feature in the water there that has since disintegrated. I have a postcard picture of it. That's
Oh
really
my
cool.
goodness.
That's
That's
cool.
amazing. I did not know that.
I didn't either.
It's Oak Island is a deep well.
It's
Uh,
and like I said, I tell the guys all the time, I'm like, it's the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more there than and there's so much on Oak Island, but there's so much more than just Oak Island.
the
It's just
individuals behind it, yeah, and they're
yep,
the reasons. They're the reason why things occurred. The Templars are the reason why things happened on Oak Island.
yep.
Francis Bacon is the reason why things happened on Oak Island. Yes,
And
yeah.
it's just this long history of you know, and I see, and you are one of the people I think who can answer the question. I think
Uh-oh.
your best position. I'm going to put you on the spot. I mean,
Go
people,
ahead.
people ask me all the time. It's like, if I had ever found any information about Knights Templar, and I always say no. There's no connection between the Rosy Cross and the Knights Templar. And then, lo and behold, I find the message that says there is a connection, and the connection is Oak Island. Okay, and so I think that this is the first time I've actually made that announcement on this show.
I was wondering. My brain was going. Wait a minute. Where? How? When?
Where is he going with this? Don't put me on the spot.
More.
So I finally found it. It was just right there, and it's the only message, and it was because they happened upon Templar works on Oak Island. I know why Raleigh and Bacon were there and using the island. I know how they found it. I know why they chose it now as their base of operations. But I still don't know. People have always asked me, well, why would the Templars be there? I'm like, they were following. I think, after, I can say this much about Bill Smith's and my discoveries over this last summer. We went looking for our guys, right? The Rosy Cross. And instead we found a Viking site. So, and that's as much as I can say. And so that means that we have, I believe, that there was communication between the Vikings and their trade routes and the way they would travel. There's this tradition of maritime information and nautical information that goes from the Vikings to the Templars and
Terrific.
eventually to the Rosy Cross and through John Dee and Francis Bacon. And so because they were following the same routes, they would end up in the same places.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And of
so
course,
whether
the Vikings married into the royal houses, and that DNA ends up, going into the Templar, the noble houses that would provide Templar knights and managers, etc. So, yeah, it is connected, and all of that navigation knowledge, such as the Viking Sunstone.
right.
One was discovered on a Elizabethan warship
I
off
was
the
just going
coast
to
of
mention that.
France.
Yeah.
Yeah, a few years back. That's in my book,
Yeah.
and of course Josh Gates did a wonderful hour on that, on
Yes.
how a Viking Sunstone works.
His
And
episode is
so,
fantastic.
they thought it was a mystical thing. They didn't, archaeologists, scientists didn't think it was real until it was. and
Yeah,
it
they
was
thought it
in
was all legendary, right? And then
yeah,
all of a sudden they find an actual example, and they realize it's a tool that really works.
in
It
a
allows you to do
navigation box
Yeah,
that the captain would have had and held as a state secret in the way that our technology today is a
absolutely.
state secret and protected with the cost of your life
Right.
should dishonor that.
Yeah,
So
and the funny thing is that, we look at, and it's kind of like we started out the show, you and I talking about this idea, um, was that, the guys back then, they didn't have a 9 to 5 job where they punch a time clock, and people are always wondering, how could they possibly have accomplished this? Well, the problem is that, all of these things we're uncovering now, and that are now gonna be also coming out in your book, with John and William, um, these are things that were recorded, uh, and encrypted because they were state secrets.
yeah,
And, the men themselves, the true identities of the men we know from history under the names of Sir Walter Raleigh and Sir Francis Bacon, uh, they themselves were state secrets. Okay,
yes.
so you have always done a great job of pointing out of how much of the historical record is missing, right? In terms of primary
90%. We've lost 90% of our European documents. And we think we know a lot about it today. We've lost 90% of our documents. That's a
Yeah.
cultural blackout.
Oh,
So
it
there is huge amounts of discoveries out there to be made
absolutely.
and to extrapolate through the actions of historical people within, say, even 3 generations. You
Yeah.
know, it did get passed down um,
Right.
in one way or another. So,
Yeah, such a great point. Very well said. So yeah, looking at um, comments.
trying to think of what can we do now. I don't
Yeah, what do you want
remember
to do?
how long you wanted to chat about things.
I mean, I
Um,
yeah, John, great point. He really did pay it forward for sure, and
yeah,
and
yeah,
he's now uh uh you know uh, a ski jumper, and or always has been, but is really active in that. He's focused on all of his attention on that now. He doesn't really look into the Bacon ciphers anymore, at least not publicly. He's kind of, decided to not do that anymore. And I get it. There's just so much. There's just so much information. It just keeps going. It's that
it was an entire culture, wasn't it?
it was, and it
Uh,
feels it's so overwhelming, and for someone like
yes,
Peter, and myself in particular, um, I can see how expansive it is, and how it just keeps going, and how it's just impossible for one person to. And I totally understand, the rationale of saying, you know what, I don't think I'm going to do this anymore. you know, so I understand where he's coming from when he says that,
yeah.
and I wish him the best. He's definitely blazed the trail for me. Oh, John wants to know, is it time for the cover reveal? Oh, Barbara has a great question for you. She's one of our regular viewers. Is there a site or a book with the Royston Cave drawings? Great question, Barbara.
Yeah. I have my own. But I've opted to use historic illustrations in mine. The cave guards its images very strictly, but you can go to Royston Cave and they have a virtual reality tour, and where you can on your own time take as much time as you'd like, explore the entire cave. It's not the same thing as being there. It's
Right.
quite and meant to be an experience and to take you away from your daily world to shock you a bit. So it's a bit like we going to see a film and to block out our daily experiences and have something new put in front of us. And so, yes, go to the Royston Cave website for that information. And not all of my observations were in the interview or the tour that I was privileged enough to have given Marty and Charles and Alex. We were down there for several hours, and
That was so cool. That was such a great episode.
It was that meant a lot to me, and that was my fourth attempt to get them there. So that took 4 years to make. That took 4 years to make that happen. So yes, I was so excited that they wanted to film us walking across the street. And we had to redo it like 3 times because I just kept, all right, let's go. And I was so fast, I left everybody, in the dust behind me, including the camera who couldn't keep up with me. So I was just like, oh, here at last.
Hurry up, you guys, let's go.
I've been waiting for 4 years on this one.
Seriously. That was like, Barbara says that episode wasn't long enough, in my opinion, Gretchen.
Thank you. And of course, it's so important for King James as well, because he took over the town, and it, the name of Royston is challenging, lost in history, perhaps. And, ROI is French for king, with Latin Rex, REX. But so yes, he did take over the town, but Roy also could be Lady Roysia, who was married to Geoffrey de Mandeville, who I believe was the originator of the cave. And he was a Templar, secular, contributor. He was, he was killed by King, was it Stephen? Because he sided with Matilde. Matilde had was supposed to have been the Queen of England, but there was a dreadful. It's called the Anarchy Years and terrible war, and she almost won, but her son actually ends up becoming the next king, so she had the last laugh at the end of the day. But Joffrey was his body was taken by the Templars and interred, one of the few interments in the Temple Church in London, the headquarters for England. Nobody would take his body. And so why did the Templars want that man's body and place it in a place of honor? So you can see his effigy. I don't know where he's buried today on the property, but he was originally buried there. But he is one of 9 effigies inside Temple Church, London, along with, of course, William Marshall, the greatest knight, also with Templar knight contacts.
Oh, wow.
So these guys were powerhouses.
That's so cool.
Just it's certainly the drive. This all of this content that spans centuries is a driving force in my life. A way of life.
Well, you can tell. It's like every time I have a conversation with you, or when you are able to so effortlessly just talk about these connections and these personages in history that most people know very, very little about. It's always impressive. It's just always impressive.
Thank you. Thank you. And these are people who were focused on Oak Island and North America.
Yeah.
And Oak Island was an outdoor cathedral. Nolan's Cross was a outdoor cathedral, and they were there for wood. They were there for lumber. They were there for copper. They were there for fish. And we all know the Portuguese had been fishing there, of course.
Absolutely.
And they were there for fur. John Edwards and I were involved in another project, and that's how we met up, I believe, in 2019. about Europeans in North America and the Great Lakes areas. And fur was a huge thing. The French
Yeah.
had killed off their bear by 600. Ditto with the English. So if you could get your hands on a bear pelt, that was pretty high status stuff. So,
Absolutely.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. I remember when you guys started collaborating on that. Um,
yeah.
so, and I'm looking at our comments here in the chat, and Jeff Freeman talks about someone keeps saying stuff about a village. Geesh. And then, of course, John says, of course, it takes a village for sure. You
Yeah.
know,
Oh, yeah.
and
And
then
Francis
John says,
Bacon had his
Jeff,
village.
oh yeah, Jeff is like, haha, there it is. I love that interchange, you guys. It's so fun. Um, and Z, of course, with great comments as usual, she says, I believe that Bacon was in part trying to fill in some of the missing history of England by writing many books and plays that were history related. Absolutely, Z. I agree.
Nice.
I agree 100%. It's great observation for sure.
Nice.
So I think, well, we've gone. Oh, Gretchen, it's like this time has flown. We're over an hour now, as it is wont to happen with us, I guess. So I'm wondering, John had mentioned, is it time for the big reveal?
Maybe it is.
And Tom Burns in the house. Drum roll, please.
Hi, Tom. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Here we go. All right, let's do this. I got it queued up here. And so the front cover of the new book coming out, Codes of the Hidden King, by John Edwards, Gretchen Cornwall, and William Russell, a power trio if there ever was. And so can you speak just a little bit to in very broad strokes?
Well,
I'll go ahead and
sure.
pull up. Here's the back cover. We'll do that. My girlfriend's right there. And the back cover reads, for the first time in over 500 years, concealed cryptograms, messages from the past, give us a glimpse and understanding into the underground tradition that opposed both institutional dogma and the power they wielded within Europe's war of wills. Join the journey of illumination as the secrets embedded in the Last Supper, the Mona Lisa, and the 1611 King James Bible, amongst other newly discovered sources, are revealed. Gain insight into the players, the information they guarded so closely, and passed on in a multi-generational cloak and dagger network. Learn the truths of these masters and their messages in the Codes of the Hidden King. The message is always the same. Isn't that the truth, Will? Isn't that the truth? The message is always the same. So what do we think?
Well, we tried to say a lot without revealing main points.
Right.
I can tell you that John, William, and I are writing it. Sorry. Sorry.
Talk about broad strokes, right?
Sorry. Yeah, it's does anyone have any questions? I mean, I really am not going to say too much. You might think you know what this is about, but I guarantee you don't know what this is about.
I agree.
So it's
So Adam Thomas, by the way, he and his dad, Frank, are just powerhouses when it comes to working on the transposition ciphers with me. Gretchen, have you ever run into the term antris or antrim, Latin term for a cave? I found it in a beautiful decryption. The beauty behind the term is that it must be made naturally by God. That's cool.
Interesting. Well, caves are important in initiation practices in the Templar community. Certainly early, or they're just important. And I've seen natural caves that have been converted. I've seen caves that have been created. Thank you. We are proud of the professional help that we had with that, with the understanding we would not reveal who.
Right.
And it is very elegant, a very elegant cover. And he is Francis Bacon. I place him alongside Bernard de Clairvaux
Oh, wow.
and even Leonardo da Vinci. If you're talking about geniuses,
Yes.
and then Bacon constantly astounds and constantly surprises,
Yeah.
and he is, we talk about the mind of the century, but I think his was a mind that comes along every 500 years if we're lucky.
If we're lucky. Yeah.
If we're lucky.
I, I always say probably, the greatest mind in the last, 1,000 or recordable history for sure. And Da Vinci, we have these people, these individuals who are just such standouts. I mean, it's where we get the term Renaissance man, right? Or
Yes.
Renaissance person. And so, um,
Able to do anything and everything
absolutely,
to a masterful level.
yeah, yeah,
Um, so when I first started writing my first book, it was, thank you. We are within weeks of finishing the main body of the text. Hopefully not longer than 2. And then, of course, we will be as hard on each other when it comes to editing, because it needs to be right. So that will
absolutely.
take time. And then the formatting, and it's going to be a very beautiful book. There is a great deal of art that we've discovered that backs up the codes.
Yep.
So it's a nice triangulation that has occurred between art, codes, and these astonishing individuals who led such a secret life under the radar.
Yep.
And Bacon couldn't wear a crown.
Nope.
Because he was too busy. And in the same way that Bernard de Clairvaux could not be Pope because he was too busy. He could have been, but he advanced 2 individuals through his patronage, his Cistercians, to become elected Pope. So, but he always remained a humble abbot and actually had a bedroom under a stairwell.
Yeah.
He was very humble in his life. What does,
like
after it's out for a while, you got to come back to Jake's show and talk about, looking forward to that.
Yeah, Tommy,
Without a doubt. And I shall be absolutely shameless and talking to anybody who I can grab, tackle,
hold down and say, hey, look,
read this book.
absolutely. And it's like, we've been talking about this for a long time now, the 4 of us, of when it's finally out, and when John and William get to look at the stupid look on my face when they start dropping some truth bombs on me of what they've uncovered and what you've written. And I don't know, I'm just, I couldn't look forward to it more.
It's they say knowing about something can't change your life, but the truth is it can. It can change your inner makeup. It can change your perspective. It changes how you respond to the outside world. Reading a book is a form of initiation in itself.
It really, I couldn't have said that better myself, Gretchen. That you're so right. It really, when you learn, something like, particularly the kinds of information we've all been uncovering here for the last few years now, it really does change us. I mean, it changes who we are. Let's see. Sandy says, I've heard there are tunnels that connect several of these grand cathedrals, possibly along the ancient ley lines. I hadn't heard that, Sandy. That's really interesting. Have you ever heard that, Gretchen?
No, that's new to me. I have not heard that. There are, we know that there is an escape tunnel in Rome from the Vatican to a fortress where, the Swiss guard protected one of the popes there to nearly their demise. But and of course, there are often underground tunnels, leading from one building to another. So especially if, the royalty or priestly caste does not want to be seen by the public. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of truth in that. I haven't heard that one. That's really
Yeah,
interesting.
it's really interesting.
Royston Cave is on a major ley line if one takes that type of energy idea on board. A huge northeast to southwest line that the Templars actually rode on from one end of the country, from Sandringham Palace, where the royal family live outside of London, all the way down to Bristol, where they had they controlled the port of
Right.
Bristol. So, in fact, the Uffington horse is in the cave, Royston Cave. So,
Oh, wow.
the chalk horse,
Yeah.
which is this ancient, because it's a chalk hillside, our ancient English or whoever they were, dug the shape of a horse and other images, a bit like the Nazca images. There's the big giant with the two staves,
Yep.
and but the Uffington horse is actually represented in the cave.
Oh, that's amazing. I never knew that. That's so
Yeah.
cool. Jenny's asking, has anyone tried using AI to decrypt anything? Looking forward to the book. I haven't, Jenny. Other people have really suggested to me to try it, but I don't, simply because I think John he says all decoding done by hand, like it was originally coded.
Yeah.
The reason I do that is when I'm doing, for example, a transposition table, as I'm transposing the letters, oftentimes when I do it manually, my own self, I can start decrypting the acrostic anagrams as I'm transposing. I can actually start seeing them appear. So when I return to that table later, I already have a working knowledge of the arrangement of the letters in a memory of a possible message. And so the process of doing it helps you actually to, understand the message when you go through and do the full decryption. So great question. And John answers, some coding is dense and complex at times. Takes a mind like William Russell to unravel. That's a fact, 100%. So Stan wants a copy autographed by all three fabulous authors.
Thank you.
I think we all want one of those, Stan.
We might be able to come up with a book plate system where we mail the book plate to each other and sign it, and we might be able to come up with something like that.
That would be cool. Someone else had asked if you guys were going to do a book tour.
We might need patrons to do that.
Yeah. That costs money.
That would be wonderful if possible. It depends on how well the book does. I've been invited to speak many places, but unless offers of air travel or petrol, or he needs more popcorn. Oh, I'm sorry. Just give me a time and I'll keep talking.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, and of course,
awesome.
I agree. Couldn't agree more, William. I really couldn't agree more. Yeah. I'd rather do it by hand. So let's see. Lori Noseworthy, I have a question. Have you left Don Quixote out on purpose? It is a theory that Bacon wrote that also. I haven't left it out on purpose, Lori, but I have a working theory. I haven't gone in and actually looked at a facsimile copy of it, of the original publication, but I plan to, because my working theory is that it wasn't Bacon, it was Sir Walter Raleigh, the man we know from history under the name of Sir Walter Raleigh. It was also an alias, but great question, Lori.
Cool.
I really believe that Don Quixote was, or Cervantes was a pen name of Walter Raleigh. Let's see. Yeah, Z, I've seen that too. Sometimes when I use Google Lens for one guy, the other related ones show up. They were all in the mix. Yeah, absolutely. So I think that what's happening is that Google AI is starting to pick up on this network of connections between all of these individuals and recognizes that they are connected for sure. Great comments. Thank you.
Mhm.
Um, Yeah, Jenny, she says, "That's what I was wondering. Couldn't see AI being as adept, not to mention the ones I've used tend to repeat itself after too much interaction, so actually would be a problem." Yeah, it's only as good as, as what you try to program it to do and the questions you ask it. And so, I have used, I think it's Grok, as sort of a research assistant sometimes when there's something quick that I just need to look up or know, or if there's a connection between individuals, and that works particularly well. But I wouldn't use it for decryptions. Oh, you're welcome, Lori. I'm glad that answered your question. Great question. All right, gang. Anything else good for the order here of our brotherhood and sisterhood? Um, no other questions. You know, Gretchen, it's first. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure, and you're always so incredibly knowledgeable and informative. And like I said, now that you and John and Will have joined forces in this book, this is going to be a force to be reckoned with. I think that you're really stepping into the fray here of how all of these different areas are connected, and I think that what you've done here, and like I said, I can't wait. You guys only gave me a few little tidbits, little pieces of the puzzle here, but um, uh, I'm so excited for this book to come out. It's the one I've been anticipating the most, I think, in the last couple of years. So
Thank you.
I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see your accomplishments and your discoveries that you've made, because, like I said before, this is very, very important work. I think we're all doing, and the more people we can get on board, like you three and Z, um, uh, Stephanie Patterson. We have uh, Adam and Frank on board now. Jason Mercer, of course, and so I think that when we are when it's all said and done, I think that people are going to have to stand up and recognize uh, the validity of everything we've uncovered, and it's and people, when people read my book or any of my books and they contact me and say, "Oh my God, you're changing history." I'm like, "No, I'm not. I'm just uncovering it. It's all
Mm.
real. It's all here." And that's what you guys are doing, times three. And I just appreciate you guys so much, and thank you so much for coming on tonight. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. I appreciate your interactions, behind the scenes with us, and I get reports back when I, of course, am not involved, and
Right.
it's we just keep hitting milestones, and today is a milestone for us. That's very important for me. I keep turning red. So thank you for having us on. This is quite a dynamic community, and there are so many people here with so many different strengths across the board. So it's quite a village, dynamic
Yeah,
village.
I
Yeah.
like that. I like
Yeah.
that. It pulls in John's village. Yeah, John, great show. Thank you. Thanks, Patty. Adam. Uh, Stan says you are the best guest.
Oh, thank you, Stan. I appreciate that. Thank you. I do
And
appreciate it.
absolutely. All right, Gretchen, I'm going to go ahead and pop us out and take us out of the show here. And
Thank you, everyone.
yeah, thank you. Appreciate you so much. Um, wow, what what a great guest. I mean, she's always fantastic, but now when these three have teamed up, uh, I just can't wait for the book, you guys. You got to hurry up. All right. So thank you, everyone. I see so many of you, throwing up the chats here. I appreciate you guys so much. I'm going to go ahead and take us out of the show. And until next time, just be cool and see you in a couple weeks. Take care, gang. Bye.